Hey guys, Vinnie Mirchandani here. Real pleasure to have Ed Abbo from C3.ai, which is an industrial IoT and machine learning company helping a lot of asset intensive industries, oil and gas, utilities, manufacturing, and a bunch more that I'm sure Ed will tell us about. And Ed, welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about C3.ai, and then we can jump into some of the questions.
Super, Vinny. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. And just a little bit about C3.ai. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of the company. The company's been in business for just over 10 years. We help other enterprises essentially digitally transform themselves. And what that means is to really kind of rethink their operations, how they engage customers, how they basically deliver for customers and operate their businesses, whether they're in manufacturing or whether they're in oil and gas, banking, so asset and services companies. And specifically what we do is we have harnessed a step function change in technology, which is cloud computing. So think of that as cheaper computing, machine learning to basically assist people make better decisions. And that's the basis, and obviously the IoT or the sensor technologies. So the convergence of those three technology vectors has really enabled us to basically transform businesses, and that's squarely where C3 is focused.
Well, Ed, thank you for expanding I thought you were more asset intensive, but it sounds like you're into services also. That's great. Well, Ed, we've seen a lot of acrobatics, what I call acrobatics, in the last 3 months, right? We've seen auto companies jump in and make medical ventilators. We've seen last mile logistic backflips. We've seen medical healthcare heroics. I'm sure you've seen some in your customers. Share a few stories, that have made you go, wow, I didn't think that was doable that quick or doable at all.
Yeah, so Vinny, you're absolutely right. It's remarkable the agility that some of these very large organizations have been able to demonstrate in very short periods of time. And so we're working with some medical equipment providers that have had to basically double production. In some cases, the demand was, like quintuple the regular production, and in short order for things like face masks and other PPE, ventilators, etc.
I can guess it's a two character name, right?
2 character names and other names that are in that business. But if you think about it, these large organizations that are distributing literally tens of thousands of SKUs or products across the globe. They have hundreds of manufacturing facilities and that are interdependent. And what they're looking at is the demand signal, if you will. So what are customers ordering where? And usually there's some periodicity to that, where you can anticipate based on economic factors, based on seasonality and other factors, what your orders might be. And then all of a sudden, there's significant demand for certain products and a collapse of demand for others. And how do you rejigger your business to meet that? And frankly, this is what we're seeing, Vinny, is an acceleration of what is referred to as digital transformation. So what that really is being able to have your finger on the pulse, not on a quarterly basis, but literally in a near real-time basis on who's ordering which products in what locations, and then even more challenging are supply and supply disruptions. And so, the supply chains have ordinarily operated, in anticipated ways, and then all of a sudden they're operating in unanticipated ways. And so trying to have your finger on the pulse on the demand side and then basically the supply side, and balancing that out so you can deliver your customers on time and full is acrobatics, as you define. And the only way to handle this is using this step function change in technology, where you're integrating the data from across your company, seeing everything in near real time, and then applying algorithms to tell you the supplier is starting to experience issues. We're not receiving the parts on time. We're seeing more demand here, less demand there, and then basically mitigating risk on a real-time basis. And so those are the technologies that we provide into manufacturing. And for 3M, as you mentioned, they're in hyper use right now to ensure they deliver for their customers.
What about oil and gas or utilities? Any acrobatics there?
Yeah, from one perspective, as you can imagine, one of our large customers is NL. They operate in 40 countries. They're based in Rome, and they have 73 million customers, Vinnie. So that's roughly, 3/4 of the size of the U.S. market. And just for comparison, the U.S. market has 3,200 utilities. This is one utility that has, 73 million customers. Now you can imagine that when you're operating in, massive grids, so they have over 2 million kilometers of distribution grid across 40 countries. And you need to make sure that those grids operate flawlessly. So this is another classic case where you're looking at the signals from the customer meters. You're looking at the signals across the entire power grid network, and you're essentially using machine learning and AI to determine what's likely to fail, and so that way you can dispatch the right service crew to go address it in time. And when you're operating in situations where you have a pandemic, you have to basically figure out who are your essential staff and make sure that they're available at the right place, the right time, with the right parts to ensure the lights don't go out anywhere.
Wow.
So it's challenging under normal circumstances, and obviously more challenging when you're dealing with pandemics and other crises.
Anything from any other industries? Any other wow examples?
Well, in oil and gas, obviously, you see the headlines. They're basically trying to figure out initially how to put on hold capital expenditures, right, so to the tune of 20-30%. So that's the first instinct is how do you kind of cut or hold expenses. But then what differentiates those that emerge essentially are those that figure out, how to operate their businesses at, $35 barrel in oil, $35 a barrel of oil, $40 or $45. And so for that, there's an acceleration of using the data that they're generating across exploration, development for drilling, and what they that's in the upstream areas. Midstream is the transportation of oil and gas efficiently, and then in the refinery side, processing that to petrochemicals and other downstream products. And so frankly, what we've seen there is basically after the initial freeze of capital expenditure, it's how do we accelerate digital transformation using the available data to basically operate more efficiently. And what that means is accelerations of projects to improve reliability, what they refer to as non-productive time. And in that industry, averages is like, a third of the time is non-productive because you have unplanned or unanticipated things. And so we're seeing in our customer base, like Shell, Shell Oil and others, is acceleration of using those data that they already have and machine learning to basically rapidly roll out these systems that use AI to determine what's likely to fail next, so you can go address it on scheduled maintenance versus experiencing downtime. And then it goes to production schedule optimization and inventory optimization, really kind of across the board rethink of all the efficiency associated with their businesses and figuring out how to reduce costs. And that's essentially accelerating that whole trend.
I interviewed the former CTO of BP, and he made the same point you did. He says, we are used to shocks every 5 or 6 years. This is different because this is not only usually the supply side shocks. He said this time there's a demand shock too. But he said, look at their history. We come back more efficient each time. The break-even point keeps dropping, and he used the same $35, $40 a barrel. And he said, we'll just be leaner and much more efficient. So to your point, hey, Ed, let me ask you a CTO question, right? So it sounds like IT has done very well in moving billions of people to work from home. It sounds like clouds have scaled amazingly well. I mean, you look at Zoom video traffic, all kinds of cloud traffic has done extremely well. Like you say, everyone's becoming digital much quicker than they planned to. On the other hand, it seems like the pandemic modeling has been pretty poor. And we're seeing, the whole lockdown, reopen guidance be very chaotic. Can we blame IT for some of that, or is it just more politics and, just first time getting used to something for the first time?
Well, I think Vinnie, the fact of the matter is a lot of the decisions have been made without data. So that's really the crux of it. So it's not necessarily IT, meaning cloud and other technologies, but frankly, we actually launched a initiative that you might be familiar with, which is the C3 Digital Transformation Institute, and the first area we focused on was the COVID pandemic. And I'll explain the concept in a minute, and specifically what we're doing around COVID, the first product that we launched. But the idea is to actually get researchers from universities and provide them the C3.ai technology to do research and basically cloud computing resources. So those are available pro bono at no cost to the researchers, and the researchers apply for grants. So the grants that they're basically working on are, or the research they're working on for which they apply for grants are pandemic modeling, as an example. And so we launched the initiative a couple of months ago. We just issued our first set of grants, and then the other key dimension is our data that they can operate in. So the very first product that we launched in that area was the COVID-19 data lake, which aggregates data from 20 different data sources. So this is health information, it's earth science, weather information, etc. And instead of having these disparate data sources that researchers have to figure out how to unify it, we've actually used our technology to aggregate and unify these data so that the researchers can simply access it and develop machine learning and other optimization algorithms on top of it. And so you can just Google the COVID-19 data lake, C3.ai COVID data lake, and basically have that. And so I think that the challenge has been the dearth of data, and basically we've made this available so researchers actually develop algorithms, and those algorithms can then inform policy. They can inform decision makers more effectively.
And that's fantastic to hear, because I've written case studies about the National Hurricane Center, and you look at the data sources they use, right? Satellites and hurricane hunters and buoy sensors. They have so many different data sources. It sounds like you're doing something similar. Multiple sources, multiple dimensions. We desperately need that. So kudos for doing that. Let's go into enterprise software, because you spent your life there, Oracle and Siebel, and now it's C3.ai. Traditionally, enterprise software has been about elephant hunting, right? Big projects. We've talked about agility, we've talked about acrobatics. It seems like a premium is being placed on rapid, quick projects. Is that just a response to this crisis, or do you see IT buying and selling becoming much more small transactions, much more agile? Where do you see the market headed?
Yeah, it's a good observation, Vinnie. I think the age of the multi-year, sometimes 2-year to 4-year project, especially in the public sector, where the requirements take a year or two, and then development and design and quality assurance, and by the time if you ever deliver that project, the requirements have changed dramatically. And so I think there is acceleration that's happened. And the way we approach projects, as an example, is we'll identify a kind of a process that the chief operating officer or the COO believe that they need to re-engineer. And if they are able to actually re-engineer it, they'll deliver a competitive advantage in the market. And then what we'll do is we'll scope it to be a bite-sized project. And a bite-sized project is basically, 3 months, and can be accomplished with a team of 10 people, not 50, not 100. And so examples of that might be reducing the inventory that you're carrying, what we refer to as stochastic inventory optimization. Another one might be improving reliability, as I mentioned, in oil and gas and other industries, or cash management for banks, stock loans, financial crimes, etc. But the project gets done in 3 months, and it gets done in a not for the entire corporation, but in a division of the corporation, just to demonstrate it. And then from there, it gets scaled out in another 3 months or so. And so in a 6, maybe 9 month period, you basically put into production at very large scale, something that impacts the company. And then you tackle the next one, and the next one, etc. And what these projects are strategic, such that the customer wants to actually do this themselves rather than outsource it. And so what C3.ai provides is a platform that they can basically develop applications in 6 months with 10 people, and they can basically tackle, Shell is tackling several hundred AI applications across their portfolio. Enel is doing over 100. 3M, it's Bank of America. They literally have an appetite of injecting these AI applications in very strategic areas as well as kind of across the board, and they want to do it to deliver the roadmap in 24 to 36 months of tens and hundreds of applications. And so we're seeing this agility, rapid delivery, take the improve, get the benefits from it, and then reinvest and continue to transform the corporation very rapidly. This doesn't require you to remove or replace any of your existing systems. You're just putting a digital layer on top of it and innovating very rapidly.
I'm the author of a couple of books called SAP Nation, so I've quantified the
You're familiar with the concept.
Oh my God, I'm familiar with the economics of those huge projects.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the economy, right? I've been asking every one of the interviewees, do you see a V, a rapid recovery? Do you see a U, kind of a gradual recovery? Do you see a W, flare up, slow things down, different regions at different speed? Or do you see an L, it's going to be dead for a while? Have you put your economist hat on?
That's the $64 million question.
What do you see? I mean, in different sectors, are you seeing like a lot of momentum in some industries, or is it all still too early to call?
No, I think you're right. You were seeing, as I mentioned, that the where the impact has been most, I would say, is in the small businesses. It's really been very tough on you can imagine retailers and restaurants, etc. But having said that, I think that there's some fundamental changes that are happening as a result of the experience over the last 3 to 6 months, I would say. And so where we see companies focusing on is supply network resiliency. So how do you basically if we were to re-experience these outbreaks and then outbreaks in different locations, like how do you continue to take an order from a customer and deliver it on time, mitigating for all the risk? And so it's hard to call, but obviously if the pandemic doesn't reoccur, then we're on one trajectory. If there are recurrences that are widespread, we're on a different trajectory. If they're more localized, then the trajectory might be less impacted. But what I do see happening, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of an acceleration of this digital transformation, and to look at how do you operate in uncertain times, and how do you operate more efficiently and effectively rather than be caught flat-footed.
Any final thoughts, Ed? Any words of advice, wisdom?
Stay healthy, stay safe. That's priority number one, and then think about transformation, because that's key.
This has been really interesting, really educational. So thank you so much, and good luck with all your projects, all your agility projects.
Thank you, Vinnie. Appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.